Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I am going to make a video talking about the situation surrounding Decay and his departure from the Dallas Fuel. Obviously something that happened now a little over a month ago, but it has recently been back in the forefront based on the recent performances of Decay with the Washington Justice and them beating the Dallas Fuel in the playoffs. There were a bunch of tweets and whatnot that came about. And I never made a full video talking about the situation back then, so I wanted to make one now and just give you my thoughts on what happened and my take on what has happened based on the recent stuff that's been coming out and just the information we have at our disposal. Now, obviously a disclaimer before this video, I am not an insider. I don't know anything about what happens behind the scenes with any of these teams. I don't have any sources or anything telling me information about the teams and the players and whatnot. Like that isn't the case, so I don't have any idea of what's going on. This is purely speculation and purely my thoughts and my take on what's going on with the league or with the team, the Dallas Fuel, and the situation with Decay. And nothing more than just pure speculation on my end. But I wanted to make this video and just kind of give my thoughts on what's going on and break down what happened. So let's jump back to August 3rd when the Dallas Fuel tweeted out, "We have granted the request of Decay to release him from his contract prior to the end of the 2020 Overwatch League season. Our management is focused on evaluating changes and building a cohesive team that will be positioned for future success." Under this tweet, the Dallas Fuel quote tweeted a thread from Hastro, who is the general manager or one of the heads of operations for the Dallas Fuel. And Hastro had 4 different tweets that I want to read through right now and talk about. So, Hastro said, we know we have to work hard to get our team playoff ready, so let's talk about this. Decay had a few months left on his contract, but refused to work with our staff. When a player refuses to practice, it is time for us to move on and give our players their best shot. Decay is obviously a great player, but he didn't fit into our team and didn't want to cooperate with the goals of our staff. We just can't keep someone like that around. We wish him the best and hope he can find a place where his talent fits. I don't expect everyone to understand, but our team dynamic is important, and we have major progress left to be made. We are still working hard to make a playoff push and feel like we have great players to do that with. Not ideal, but we will keep on pushing. We have our sights set on winning championships, always have, and have been very successful in our history in Overwatch. Tough decisions have to be made sometimes, and this was certainly one. Staying positive and looking forward to correcting our course. Of course, of note, this string of tweets came out on August 3rd, which was 3 days after the signing window had closed for teams. And so this situation was not well received at the time that it happened. Very, very, very many people were not happy with this because it looked like a situation where the Dallas Fuel had a superstar Korean player. They didn't know how to actually use this superstar Korean player. So instead of figuring out how to make it work, they just released the player because he had valid concerns or whatever it may be. We don't know for sure what happened, obviously. There's a ton of speculation about what happened, but it seems like that is something that happened. And the reason why this is even something that people are thinking in the first place is because this isn't the first time a situation like this has happened. If you recall back to 2018, when the Dallas Fuel had Rascal on their team, there was a bit of drama that surrounded Rascal. Rascal was released from the team, and in what they said about Rascal, they said, Rascal, a Korean DPS player acquired in a transfer from the London Spitfire earlier this season, was also released today. Also referencing to Kai also being released that same day, the former head coach. Rascal had played with the Dallas Fuel throughout Stage 2 and appeared in 2 matches for the Fuel in Stage 3. Quote, we had hoped that Rascal could add flexibility to our DPS lineup on the team this season. Unfortunately, his commitment to the team did not meet our expectations, and his unwillingness to communicate with the team while playing in recent matches became a large distraction, said Rufael, which is Mike Rufail, owner of the Dallas Fuel, previously no longer owner of the Dallas Fuel, aka Hastro. So this is not the first time that this narrative of a Korean player being uncooperative or not working with the team has been about. This is the second time this has happened now. And there's also arguably times that this has happened with OG. OG's situation, I believe, was different. OG was traded away. OG wasn't gotten rid of for disciplinary reasons or anything like that. He was just traded away for Decay. But there have been a lot of narratives surrounding Decay's treatment, OG's treatment, even Closer's treatment, Effect's treatment. Effect a little bit different in the sense that Effect wasn't didn't have like disciplinary issues within the team. He was just kind of like, here's a Korean player who we are just hoping will carry us, and we're never going to support them with the resources that they need. And that was happening again with Decay, where it's just it to me it screams like the Dallas Fuel have an organizational problem, and we're seeing it come to light. And I want to talk about the things that are so scarily similar about the Decay situation and the Rascal situation, and then dive a little bit deeper into the Decay situation in particular. Because as I mentioned, when Rascal was released, Kai, the former coach of the Dallas Fuel, who was the coach at the time that all this happened with Decay, was released as well. And the narrative surrounding his release was essentially, I'll throw it up onto the screen so you can read it yourself. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but I'm going to touch on it and we'll read certain parts of it. But essentially it was, we thank Kai for all the great work that he's done. You know, saying here, quote, "We will always appreciate Kyle's commitment to this organization. He's a true competitor who coached our team throughout a great run and a contenders championship. Unfortunately, we have not replicated that championship level of success in the Overwatch League this season." And there's a lot of things of just, you know, thanking the coaching staff and thanking Kai for what he did for the team. And he's done all these great things and always been here for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And then immediately following that by saying, and Rascal hasn't been cooperating with his team. He is not committed to this team, blah, blah, blah. Now, I have not heard of a single thing bad about Rascal as a player. I know Super went on his stream after Decay was dropped and essentially was like, they said the same stuff about Rascal when he was dropped. You know, Super was really angry, basically saying like, whoever is making these decisions for the Dallas Fuel needs to stop making these decisions because they don't know what they're doing, which is a very interesting point of view and honestly, possibly true. But we see this same narrative surrounding Decay now, where Decay was released, and the same day he was released, a few hours later, we saw Arrow, the head coach of the Dallas Fuel, as well as Decay, a former assistant coach, released as well, with the coaching update saying, head coach Arrow has been released from his position, effective immediately and continuing through the 2020 season. Yang will serve as interim head coach of the Dallas Fuel. Decay has also been relieved from his assistant coach position. Players and staff were informed of the changes today. Now, very, very, very just kind of chill, calm, no real like narrative or commentary about it. It was all very simple, and there was very little to this. It was just kind of like, he's gone, and that was it. But that was it, right? With Decay, they just said, hey, Decay, we released him from his contract, he requested to leave, he left. And then Hastro comes out on the team, or on Twitter, literally comes out on Twitter and just starts going, I'm going to bash this player who was on our team, and that is going to be what I do, and that is just how things are going to be. And it's like, you have somebody who is genuinely just playing the game, and you go onto Twitter and you bash a player who was on your team, who you released 3 days after the signing window, just for what? Like, you're literally saying, like, we're going to publicly shame this player, but we're not going to say anything bad about the coach, who arguably was the bigger problem for the team than Decay ever was. Now, yes, there is obviously stuff that was going on with Decay. I'm not going to deny that that is something that was happening. But you can't make me think that the Dallas Fuel genuinely didn't make this an issue that didn't need to happen. And so that was back in August. And that was kind of the end of the situation at the time. You have people who were kind of upset and angry. I looked at the situation just as the Dallas Fuel are unwilling to accept the fact that organizationally they have failings and problems, that I just think that at this point in time, how can you make them change these problems? Like, no information has come out to make me change my opinion on that. But like, I see Decay playing with the Washington Justice, and to me it looks like Decay is having a good time. He looks like he's having fun with the team, which I never saw when he was with the Dallas Fuel. He looked miserable on that team. But now we've moved into the end of the season, move into playoffs, and we see more and more information come out. And we see a bunch of tweets come out from Crimzo. The first one happened following the loss to the Washington Justice in the playoffs. Crimzo says, losing to the person that held your team hostage for months in scrims because he was unhappy really hits different. And of course is referencing Decay. Now this is something that obviously happened, right? Decay was having a negative attitude. He was having, holding the team hostage, or, he wasn't cooperating with the team, right? And the players on the Dallas Fuel don't deserve that, right? Crimzo doesn't deserve that. Gamsu, Doha, Note, Paintbrush, all of them, Onigod, they don't deserve to be treated this way by a teammate. It is unfortunate and a problem that Decay did this. But I think you have to look at the bigger issues and recognize the fact that there's a reason why Decay did this, and that's what needs to be kind of looked at. And I think Crimzo had some follow-up tweets that were very good and very well composed and well written, where I think Crimzo kind of touches on that. The first set of them just saying, most situations are not as black and white as people seem to think, and this is no different. There are multiple sides to a story, and I can only speak to my own. This year has been incredibly stressful for myself, and although I have many regrets, I look forward to using this long break to reflect on all that's happened this year and move forward. The third set of tweets saying, there seems to be some confusion about the meaning of my post earlier, and I wanted to clear some stuff up. I am not at all recanting my statement from yesterday, nor trying to change my story. Yes, he did what I said in my previous tweet. However, the reason I tweeted earlier about things not being black and white was to explain that although those things were done, there's another side to the story about what happened and which we don't know. Although I don't know what happened behind the scenes to cause this issue, the way he handled it was completely disrespectful and selfish in my eyes. I will not comment further on the situation, and I hope this cleared some things up. So these tweets from Crimzo I actually think are the best tweets on this whole situation, because I think they're the most accurate and the most real tweets that there are. Crimzo is saying, look, there is stuff about the situation that happened that I don't know, that I don't understand, and I am willing to accept and acknowledge that that's the case. He is saying, in his opinion, what Decay did was wrong, and it was disrespectful and selfish for the team and for Decay to act that way, and that is what Crimzo has a problem with. And I agree with Crimzo in every way in this statement. There are things we don't know, but in general, the fact that Decay did these things isn't okay and is something that shouldn't be allowed and accepted. But we need to understand that there is way more to the situation than just Decay was a bad teammate. And when you have players from this team who were on the team in the past or are on the team currently who show very clear problems with the Dallas Fuel as an organization, those are the types of things that, to me, really stand out. The first one, the main one I want to cover, is this tweet from Doha, where Doha said, "Can't erase my sad feelings because the year ended in vain, but I was able to endure it because there were fans who always supported me. Thank you for always supporting me. Also, Decay wasn't at fault." So that one's a very clear tweet of Doha saying, yeah, there were problems with this team. Decay wanted to either address these problems, or Decay had been treated poorly by this team and by this management, and that's why he was angry and upset, which makes perfect sense. There's also a tweet from Gamsu or not Gamsu, OG back in August, where he had replied to Hastro's tweet and basically said, yeah, okay, makes sense that you release this guy right after he the signing window closed. Like, okay. And Hastro was like, no, like, I would never do that to somebody. But I feel like OG going on Twitter and saying, wow, you did that, to me is the exact opposite of what Hastro is trying to say. And to me, it's OG saying that he knows that that is exactly what somebody within the Dallas 2 organization would do. And I think that is really what OG is getting at with this situation. So with all of this kind of in the mind, right? What do I think happened in this situation? What do I really think is kind of the truth behind what went down? I think that the Dallas Fuel, as an organization, do not truly understand how to build a team around a star player. They have been struggling for years and years and years to put together a team that is good. And they've wanted to have really good players. But because they have spent years and years and years with just players on their contracts who are awful with their contracts, not necessarily that the players themselves are bad, but the fashion in which they have signed some of these players, the contracts that they've signed these players to, is just absurdly long and crazy. And when you look at stuff on Twitter, like seeing the fact that players like AKM and Unco and Trill are sitting on the bench of this team and they're not playing Overwatch, they're not scrimming Overwatch, they're sitting on the bench playing Valorant. And if you're Decay and your team is struggling and you're going in every single match, putting in maximum effort just to play and perform, and the team is just basically saying, we're doing fine, we're doing great, when you're losing games and you're the only one regularly putting in like the work and your team isn't able to put it up around you, yes, that is something to say, like, you have to, like, you have those situations where you have to learn how to play with a team that isn't as good as you and isn't as strong as you. But when you're on a team and everybody else isn't doing what they're meant to do, or they're not hitting the level that you're hitting, where you know you're good enough, and you have players on this bench, you have an organization that isn't trying to get better, you have a coaching staff that arguably not very good, that clearly isn't showing the results that you need to show. Obviously, the coaching staff wasn't doing that good if Decay and Era were fired on the same day. Clearly, if that's happening, that shows you that the coaching staff wasn't doing a very good job either. And Decay probably had said that, and probably said, like, this team isn't doing anything because this organization isn't doing anything. We have players on the bench that are doing nothing, and they're just getting paid a ton of money to sit on the bench and play a different game and stream. And I think you have a player like Decay who was just angry and upset about this, and who saw this and said, this isn't fair to me and my other teammates who are actually trying and competing on a regular basis, when there are these players on the bench who aren't doing anything, and they're getting this really, like, special treatment, essentially, where the rest of us are struggling to try to win matches, and they're just not helping the team out in any capacity at all. And maybe AKM and Unco and Trill are helping in capacities behind the scenes that we don't see. But when it seems like you have players like Unco who literally tweeted out, getting back on Overwatch for the first time in a long time, clearly he's not scrimming, and he's not helping this team in any capacity if that's the way that he's tweeting online. And when you look at Trill's Twitter, he's tweeting a lot about Valorant, and AKM is tweeting a bunch of different things. And I don't want this to be coming as me bashing these players. Like, they have these really nice contracts where they can just sit there and they don't have to play Overwatch. Like, that, if they don't want to play Overwatch, like, they're entitled to that. They're on a contract. They're entitled to do whatever they want so long as they can stay on that contract. And I respect them for being able to do that. But if you're a player on that team and you see your teammates doing something other than what you are doing, and you just want to play the game and you just want to win, and your teammates are actively doing stuff that doesn't help your team win, you're going to be frustrated and you're going to be annoyed when the team doesn't work to fix those problems. And that, I think, is why Decay had a problem. I don't recall ever hearing about any disciplinary issues that Decay had with the LA Gladiators or coming into the Overwatch League. That was never a concern or a question that I ever saw anybody say at all. That just wasn't a thing. So I don't believe that that is true, and I don't believe that that was something that was actually happening. And when you look at the Washington Justice, who have built a team around Decay that works, that wants to compete, players who show up every week and just play, you can see how much different Decay is. Like, he looks happier. He looks to be enjoying things a lot more. And so, for me, I look at the situation and I say, there is certainly something going on with the Dallas Fuel when you have a player like Doha, who is still on the team, coming out and supporting his former teammate, who his other teammate is saying was holding our team hostage during scrims, and who my team's general manager dragged through the mud on Twitter. If Doha is willing to defend Decay for that, clearly there is a problem within the Dallas Fuel as an organization for harboring a culture from back in 2017 and 2018, and it is still here in 2019 and 2020, where they are harboring a situation in a community and a culture that doesn't work, and that specifically has worked against the Korean players, because we've seen the Korean players come into this team and try to win, and they are just thrown to the side when they realize that the culture isn't a winning culture in Dallas. That is where I think the problems stem for this team. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on any of this whole situation in the comments down below. That is all for me. If you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing for more content like this in the future. I am going to get out of here. Thank you once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.